and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove, and I am joined by the man who taught Kendall Waston how to celebrate goals. His name is Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello. Stick that tongue out and pump those fists.
Yeah.
That's it.
I think it was you and Elaine from Seinfeld. You did a joint class where you taught Kendall Waston how to celebrate
Now,
goals.
wait a minute. Are you implying that his celebrations aren't awesome? Because they are awesome.
They are awesome.
They don't feature little kicks either. It's the little kicks that are the real selling point for Elaine's dancing.
His arms were very Elaine.
Yes,
you know what I'm saying?
a little bit.
Little kicks with his arms.
Kind of the head bobs, too. Okay,
Yeah.
I see what you're doing here. I see what you're doing.
Yeah. But yeah, I did enjoy his celebrations.
Yeah.
All right, so we are here today. We are going to do a quick review of the two playoff games that happened Wednesday night, he said, thinking carefully.
Yep.
So the Chicago-New York game and the Vancouver-San Jose game. We have got 4 brilliant listener questions, and we've got the TSS Scouting Network, of course. So shall we start in Chicago?
Yeah.
So Chicago hosted a playoff game.
They did.
It's a big deal because they finished bottom of MLS.
Not a lot of people know that they hosted a playoff game, but yeah.
2015. Yeah, so the first thing that caught my eye was only 11,000 people listed as the attendance. I'm not even sure there were actually that many people there.
I don't think there probably
So what was that all about?
I think
maybe they're all very prescient. They knew what was coming.
Yeah.
They're like, I don't want to go and watch my team lose 4-0.
Yes. It was a betting syndicate. No, I think initially I had those same kind of concerns that a lot of people have of like, does this mean that like the stadium's too far away? Do people not care? Are people not that interested? And I think you actually were the one who kind of had the right answer here. And I'm pretty sure what you said is correct. So I'm going to let you say it.
What did I say?
You don't remember? Which is basically they didn't know if they were going to be hosting or not. So you don't have much time to like prepare to be hosting an event. So then you don't have much time to sell the tickets.
Turns out decision day, the decision is, what are you doing on Wednesday?
Yep.
Right?
Exactly.
So yeah, they only found out this weekend that they'd have a game, be hosting a game because of the results on decision day. And then obviously it's not a long time to sort of plan, like literally, I'm not joking, plan a babysitter, make sure you finish work in time to get there for what was, did we say, a 7:30 Central kickoff?
I mean,
I think that's partly to blame.
Yeah, and I would go so far as to say, like, cancel dinner plans. Like, if you know suddenly that, like, you have a playoff game on Wednesday, you might have made, like, a business meeting that you had scheduled or whatever, and now you're like, I can't really get out of it. I'm sure they'll make the next round, though. It'll be fine.
You might have a not best friend, but, you know, good friend, and it's their birthday, and there's a party that night.
A workplace proximity associate?
Yeah, and, you know, you're invited that night, and you sort of say, yeah, I can probably come. It depends what happens with the Chicago Fire.
I like that we're going through all the theoretical possibilities as to why people might not cancel plans to attend the Chicago game.
I'm saying this happened for everybody. Everybody had a friend whose birthday it was.
Forgot that Chicago's all about same-day birthdays. Yeah. No, so, I mean, there's that, and then it's midweek. Obviously, that doesn't help.
Yeah.
From what I understand, it was fairly cold, or somewhat cold, and raining.
Chicago?
Yeah, right? I know, shocker. So maybe just not like the perfect congruence of events to allow for a fully attended game.
Okay, so yeah. But then, the people who did turn up, those brave 11,000...
left probably 70 minutes in.
Well, I would have left 11 minutes in. I wouldn't actually have left. But this game was over real fast. So New York scored in the 7th minute and the 11th minute. And really the game was over at that point in many, many ways, right? So why did New York get off to such a fast start? Or why did Chicago get off to such a slow start?
I mean, I think New York... I would say they had a plan to kind of sit back a little bit and frustrate. They came out in theoretically a 3-5-2, but I think you correctly summed it up as a 3-6-1.
It's a 3-6-1 because the guy behind the striker was Sasha Kleshton.
Yeah, but I think
Kleshton was the Diego Maradona 86 of New York Red Bulls in this formation.
I think he would take that comparison. But I think so. I think that was part of it, is that they kind of sat back to frustrate. And I think what actually happened in those first few minutes, Bobby Warshaw wrote an article for MLS Soccer about basically just people don't realize. I mean, playoffs are super like anxiety-inducing, stressful things.
So I'm ashamed to say I didn't read that article. I did see it today, but I had a load of work to get through. You know, I like Bobby as well because we've had him on the show a couple of times. I didn't get to read it, but I assumed it was about like how these sort of nerves get to you and how,
I mean, he was basically saying that like before his first playoff game, he couldn't tie his shoes because he was like so nervous.
No one ever taught him?
That was the problem. That's what held him back. And so I think people forget that like it's a big deal for Chicago, who've struggled in seasons past to suddenly be in the playoffs.
Bottom of the whole league 2016, bottom of the whole league 2015. Hosting a playoff game 2017.
Yeah, I mean, the number 3 seed in the East. And so I think there's expectations there, but then you've got some injuries. You've got some players who maybe aren't in like full fitness coming into this game.
Yeah.
You've got all the pressure there, whereas in New York, they've been there before in that situation of they're the favorite. In this situation, they come in as the bottom seed in the East. people maybe are
the bottom
thinking,
seed? Wow.
and people are thinking maybe if this doesn't go well, they blow up the team. So there's like kind of pressure on them, but not nearly as much as there is when, say, they win the Supporter Shield.
Yeah.
So I think all of that combined for Chicago to be really nervous, and you could see that in those first few minutes where it was a lot of like missed kicks and kind of just hoofing the ball long, and it felt like everybody was sort of like, I don't want to be the one to make a mistake. I don't want to be the one to concede. So I'm going to do what I have to do to make sure that I'm not at fault.
So let's talk about that first goal,
Sure.
because I would argue, so Bradley Wright-Phillips scores the first goal in the 7th minute. I would argue that both Chicago centre-backs are so focused on just making sure they've got Bradley Wright-Phillips. I'm not saying just for this goal, but for the whole first 7 minutes, that they over-focus on him, and that leads to what I would call, they look like massive defensive mistakes, but it's just like almost trying to pay too much attention to him.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? They sit deep and both next to him in a way that sort of ruins your offside trap and ultimately doesn't stop him getting the ball.
Yeah, because then what happens is if you would just have a system where, look, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do X, Y, and Z. That's our plan from the beginning. Then kind of you're on the same page. But if it is, don't let him score. He's their main threat. Let's focus on him. Let's make sure one of us is marking. Then what happens is exactly what happened in this game, where maybe one of them drops because he wants to make sure that Bradley Wright-Phillips doesn't get in behind, but then the other one stays high, but then suddenly now your offside line is broken, or you don't quite know who's marking him, so there's space in the middle. And it just felt like there was a lot of sort of inconsistencies in that approach.
And I saw a lot of, so the two centre-backs are Kappelhoff and Joe Mera, they were really so focused on being next to him in the early minutes that Chicago had this weird sort of narrow centre-back thing going on. So then when you looked at Vincent and Polster, the two fullbacks, there was a weird gap between the centre-backs and the fullbacks. And it's not that Polster and Vincent were on the touchline. It's just that Kappelhoff and Joe Mera were sort of next to each other almost, with Bradley Wright-Phillips in between them.
Well, let's hold that for a second.
He was the meat in a Chicago Fire sandwich.
First of all, yes. Second of all, hold that for 1 second, because I think that factors into the second goal.
Yeah.
But for the first goal, I think what happens then is you have Kappelhoff and Joe Mera sort of not sure who needs to drop and when, and so in the end, Kappelhoff drops off. I think he thinks Maria's dropped with him, and then he hasn't, so then now Bradley Wright-Phillips is onside, and he is onside. It's very, very close, but if you watch that replay, he's just onside.
For the first goal,
And then I think that's why Kappelhoff doesn't jump for it, really doesn't challenge it at all. It doesn't, because even if he knows he's not going to win that header, he can go for it, and if you're the striker who's anticipating that ball coming in, suddenly if there's a person jumping, it can just throw you off enough, because now you're not sure if he's going to make contact, or I need to adjust my run, so even if it falls through, you might not be ready for it. But since it's completely unobstructed on the way in, Bradley Wright-Phillips is able to get on the end of it, kind of miss-hit it, but luckily for him, Lampson makes a terrible play and comes out and really comes out like feet first and not charging out to try to collect the ball or knock it away. And then basically Bradley Wright-Phillips gets a second wide open chance just to poke it into the back of the net. But I think you have that sort of indecision from those two center backs and obviously from Lampson. That leads to the first goal. Then, if you don't mind me continuing, then I think what happens is Chicago
I feel like I didn't have much choice, but
well, then I think what happens is Chicago try to adapt, and they think, oh, we're a little bit too stretched. There's too many gaps between the fullbacks and the center backs. Let's pull everyone inside and get everybody like in a very tight 20-yard space.
Because this is 4 minutes. The second goal comes 4 minutes after the first goal.
But then what happens,
including like the minute or two it takes to celebrate.
Yeah, exactly right. That seemed to be a common feature of both of these playoff games. But in the second goal, I think Brandon Vincent then tucks inside. And then Tyler Adams overlaps on the right side, and suddenly no one is marking him. So Brandon Vincent has to try to get out there as fast as he can to put on pressure. When he gets out there, he's then in a bad position. He gets beat. Tyler Adams plays that ball in. Now there's that gap. Now there's a second goal.
And Kleshton scores the second goal. I would say Vincent does get there, and Tyler Adams essentially does a good job and beats him. Because in the end, I think he sort of waits a little bit, and then doesn't he accelerate just enough to get that low, I would say curling along the floor ball in for Kleshton to get on the end of. Good movement by Kleshton in the box. But I really want to focus on Tyler Adams because, as you know, I really want to focus on Tyler Adams.
Let's do it then.
So he played right wing back in the, what we're going to call it a 3-6-1 kind of. But when they sat back in a back five, I thought Adams did a really good job defensively from what we saw. There were a couple of, wasn't it early on, a ball into the box, and it was Adams who managed to sort of step and get there first.
Yes.
Yeah, it could have been an early goal for Chicago. And then he was a real threat in terms of closing Chicago players down, winning the ball back, be it Bastian Schweinsteiger or anyone else. And then those overlapping, you want to say overlapping, but the whole flank was his, basically.
Oh, and even to your point about playing it out of pressure, I think there's the one where it probably should have been a goal. I forget who it is who fails to play it back to Royer. Basically, but it starts with a Chicago corner that Tyler Adams very calmly receives the pass in his own box under pressure, turns, plays it out, then charges 90 yards downfield. Should have gotten the ball back. If he had, I think he probably would have scored. He didn't. He showed his frustration.
So this is when he He starts that move, I think, in the one corner.
Yep.
And then ends up in the
other,
sort of, on
basically.
the left-hand side. I might have this wrong. Sorry, this
He
is
starts on the
memory.
left, ends on the right. Yeah.
Okay, but it's Reyes just can't get the ball across to him. I think it's all down the left side.
Well, basically it's the right side for both, because it's like it's Chicago's right side and then it's New York's right side in the end. So he goes diagonally. But either way, the point is he runs like 90 yards to try to start a pass and then to try to finish it. But even after that, there's the interception he makes on Bastian Schweinsteiger with like a clever little chip to get away from pressure. It's a lot of little moments from Tyler Adams, and then the big moment, that assist, which is an inch perfect ball.
He just looks so alive and sharp and just ready to go all the time. And I feel like he's kind of couple moves ahead of everybody, and then also has the pace to back it up.
Yeah.
So it's mental, it's physical, it's technical. I'm excited about Tyler Adams.
It legitimately makes me wonder if he hasn't, or if he has not, if he's seen all of the kind of reaction to the United States getting eliminated. And I do feel like there's been a lot of, there's all these youngsters, there's Weston McKennie, there's Jonathan Gonzalez.
You mean Weston McKennie?
Excuse me, Weston McKennie, there's Jonathan Gonzalez, and there's Tyler Adams. Like, why didn't they get minutes? And I do think that if you're a player who suddenly starts seeing all of these editorials and articles about, like, this kid should have been in there, it's like, yeah, I should be in there. I'm going to go prove it. And so you see that little bit more confidence in his overall abilities.
I feel like also I would go back and say Tyler Adams absolutely would have done a better job at right back in the absence of DeAndre Yedlin, the Graham Zusi did in the Costa Rica and Honduras game. Yes. I'm really confident in that.
I mean, if for no other reason than because he's just got that little bit more pace and that little bit more physicality.
Yeah,
and I think, and
I
then I do
confidence. He just has more confidence than Graham Zusi has at right back.
I like that I said if for no other reason, and then now we're about to list all of the reasons. Because the other one would be that little bit of like physicality and fight combined with that technical ability, that he can play himself out of pressure, but then also do the simple defensive tasks that you need to do.
All right, so we haven't mentioned Sasha Kljestan. He has. So he had the goal. We have mentioned him because he scored, but we haven't mentioned his magnificent assist late in the game. Is it for Varane, I think, in the end? So Kljestan has, I think it's a miscontrol by, I've forgotten his name, I think he's Russian, the number 10, who has a horrible touch in central midfield.
Arshakian.
It was an Arshakian.
Yeah.
It was an Arshakian touch in central midfield that Kljestan intercepts and plays a beautiful chip ball over the top of Chicago defence for Varane to run onto.
Breaking news.
Yes.
When we discussed this earlier, I thought he was Armenian, born in Russia, but he has an Armenian flag next to his name on Soccerway. So who knows? But I'm saying Arshakian does sound like Armenian.
Okay. Either way, he did not control the ball well.
It's the most important thing to take away from this show.
In midfield.
The guy who couldn't control the pass and played it off his own knee to get the MLS assist for the fourth goal for New York.
I don't think that's listed, right?
I don't think so.
Yeah, it's a great through ball from Kljestan, and his assist tally goes up and up and up for this season. So the game finishes 4-0. To New York Red Bulls. There's a late goal for Roya, I believe.
I know the late goal was Varane. Varane's was the fourth.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah. There's also a goal in the middle from
Mm-hmm.
Roya. Anything else on this game before we move on to the West?
Yeah, I think I have to say I feel very bad for Chicago fans, number one, because it did seem like they were putting something together, and I think that will continue. I think next season they're going to be just as strong, if not stronger.
Did you hear what Schweini said? He said sort of if there are 10 steps to be like a champion team, I feel like we took 7 steps this season, and we need to take step 8, 9, and 10.
Yes, so I feel bad that they
wonderfully German.
I felt like they had a little bit more momentum, and that's done. But I think the saddest thing is not just the 4-0 loss, it's the ACL rupture for Georgi Mihailovic.
Forgot about this.
That's going to take some time, and that's going to be a huge downer.
So weirdly, I was excited about that play at the time because it was a brilliant bit of skill from Tyler Adams. Right? Didn't he sort of, I can't remember if he intercepted or whatever, but he put it sort of one side of Mihailovic and another defender, went around the other side and then burst down the left. It may even be the play we're talking about where he should have got the ball back from
I think it was,
Raya. But in the middle of that, you see Mihailovic kind of try to slide tackle while he sprints and his knee sort of buckles as he goes in. It seems like maybe it just catches the turf in a bad way or something.
Yeah, I think
it sounds like a really bad injury.
I'm going to guess it was full speed plus like wet field plus kind of awkward challenge because you feel like you're beaten, so you're trying to make up for it, equals you kind of are out of control going into it. Not to say that he was like trying to injure, but more so that you're not.
He might have got there.
Yeah,
right.
But you know what I mean when it's like that sort of like you're lunging for the ball and it is the Ricky Bobby, like I'm flying through the air right now, not sure this is going to work, and in the end it ends with a ruptured ACL for Georgie, which is really
ruptured is bad, right? Yeah. Ruptured is worse than a tear or anything.
I mean,
else.
I know it means complete tear, which means it's not a thing that like requires minor surgery or doesn't require surgery and might heal on its own.
It means we've got to put this thing back together.
And I think he's already scheduled for it in the next couple weeks.
All right, so fingers crossed for Mihailovic. He's not just from a human perspective, but from a future of the US perspective. This is an 18-year-old kid. He's a US under-19 international, I believe, who has played significant minutes for a Major League Soccer team this year.
Yeah. So, again, reasons for optimism. Hopefully Georgie comes back. Hopefully Chicago adds a few more pieces, and they'll be back next season. But for now, New York, still in there,
Yeah.
and ready to go against
Toronto. That is a great game. I'm
is.
really looking forward to Red Bulls versus Toronto. Yeah.
New-
Tyler Adams up against Michael Bradley.
New Jersey versus New York's other team, sort of.
I'm not even touching that.
I mean, it is. I mean, Toronto is right by Buffalo. It's like 20 minutes away.
I don't think there's anyone in New York who's not Canadian who's supporting Toronto FC.
That's a good point. Actually, I genuinely don't know about that one, because if you live in,
I do.
I'll ask my relatives who theoretically care about
you
soccer.
need your passport every time you go to a game, and it's still a distance to travel.
I mean, the Buffalo Bills play home games in Toronto at times.
Oh,
so.
I was talking New York City, though.
Oh, yeah.
It's a distance thing. You got to travel upstate and then across the
I am
border.
literally talking about
Come
Buffalo.
on.
I'm talking about
Don't you have to,
Buffalo.
isn't there a magic door you have to go through Niagara Falls to get to the other side?
That's how it works, yeah. You get on the Maid of the Mist, she takes you to the magic door, you go in through there, and then suddenly you're in Canada.
You come out, you're in the VIP area at BMO.
You get free medicine everywhere. Just piles of pills.
That's a different conversation. Okay, should we move to the West, where Vancouver...
By the way, I want it on record that the way I think free medicine works is that there's just piles of stuff that you can grab.
No, what happens is you pay taxes and then it funds it. It's beautiful.
No, get out of here. Really? Then you grab the piles.
Let's go, instead of going north, let's go west.
Sure.
Right, so Vancouver hosted San Jose.
Still might be north, but yeah, I'm with you.
They were very impolite hosts because... They beat them 5-0.
Yeah, they did.
It was a 5-0 beating. It didn't happen as early as the Chicago-New York game. I think the first goal, the Freddie Montero goal, wasn't until the 33rd minute. But it was definitely a beating.
It certainly was.
Okay, so kind of the same question about this game as I had about the first game. How did this happen? Why was it so heavy?
I would say it wasn't quite the same thing with Chicago where it was nerves, but I think for San Jose to go on the road, it felt like what they were trying to do was sort of sit back and absorb a little bit, knowing that Vancouver are going to be up for it. They're at home. They're going to be going for it. And so it felt like San Jose were doing that thing where it's like, all right, let's all sit back. We'll crowd the middle. We'll make it really difficult to play through. And that can work. But what we have also seen, like from personal experience playing together on teams, is that if everybody's sitting off, or if you have one or two people sitting off too much, then they think they're marking, but what they're actually doing is marking space, but that doesn't necessarily help.
Didn't it seem like you kept seeing a Vancouver player receive the ball like in the attacking third, and then you'd see a San Jose player like was off screen and then would step to them?
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? It's like they would pop out, but it'd be too late because you can keep moving the ball before they get to you.
It was a little bit. It's like roughly the equivalent of like robbing Peter to pay Paul or whatever it is, where it's like then one guy would get the ball, he'd be open, so then a San Jose player would come like running 15 yards to try to close him down, but then the ball would go somewhere else, and now that player who tried to close down has left his man, so now somebody else has to do it, and you just keep having people like makeshift defending and running as fast as they can, but not really ever being on the same page. And when you have everybody sort of disconnected, but really trying, it leads to frustration, and it leads to like a few mental lapses, because if you're just always trying to react, eventually you're going to get fatigued and you're going to get scored on.
And if you concede some set pieces,
there's that too.
You're going to get scored on. Yep. So the first goal comes from a set piece. It's Kendall Waston is definitely going for goal when he meets this ball in the air. He's off target by a little bit, but Freddie Montero is there to redirect it at the far post. And for some reason, I don't know why, I'm not a Vancouver fan. I have nothing against San Jose. But this really made me smile because Freddie Montero's in the goal, like lying face down in the goal, laughing. And Kendall Waston runs off celebrating as if the Freddie Montero thing never happened, as if Kendall Waston has scored. It felt like the Bobby Warshaw talking about nerves. Yeah. It felt like a big release of nerves from Kendall Waston. Yeah.
It makes me wonder, and I know very, very little about Kendall Waston, so I'm hoping that he hasn't, committed horrible atrocities in the past when I say this.
I mean, to some strikers, but...
Yeah, but it does feel like he is the greatest...
to Christian Pulisic, actually.
This is true. But it does feel like he's the greatest locker room presence ever. Because you could just... The way he celebrated that header, he clearly was trying to head that one on frame and ended up putting it in the path of Freddie Montero. But he celebrates in a way that made me think that before the game, he was like, I'm going to score today. I'm going to get an assist or something like that. Because they all just celebrate so emphatically. Same thing for when he scores his goal, which is essentially a tap in from less than 6 inches, fewer than 6 inches.
If that was in the NFL, someone would have been just trying to sort of charge it over the end line. There would have been like a push over the end
line. He vultured that goal. So I think, but still, you're absolutely right though that I think that goal, the way they react, it is just sort of a giant release, and it's also Freddie Montero gets up and he's laughing, and you can just see it in that moment that okay, these guys are kind of loosey goosey. Yeah, that's probably going to play to their advantage.
And then if you've got someone who can step up and score a free kick,
that doesn't hurt.
Is it Teixeira? Is
Yes.
that the guy's name? That was a top corner, as our friend Pav says, where the postage stamp goes. I think. Top left corner, yeah.
And this is where I would say, first of all, yes, it's an amazing free kick. And
Stamps go top right corner. We've done this before. But this goal went top left corner.
You tried.
None of my mail ever gets there either.
It's always confusing because I know what you mean. Because to me, it's the top right corner because you're facing the goal when you shoot at it. But then if you're the goalkeeper, it's top left. Either way, I'm with you. Stamp.
Yeah.
But in this situation, Andrew Tarbell is in goal for David Bingham, right? We know
Instead
David Bingham. Yes. And I don't
think David Bingham was on board with that decision.
I don't think he was either. And we looked into this a little bit because we knew he didn't play that final game of the regular season. I thought, maybe he's like injured or maybe they're resting him for the start of the playoffs. Not the case because he did not start this game. A lot of San Jose fans frustrated by that. And I would say Tarbell probably isn't really at fault for this one because it's a beautifully hit free kick. That said, his dive is sprawling. He leads with his lower hand, which you don't want to do because that doesn't give you the extension you want. I'd say for the third goal, I think it is, he's way out of position. He comes way far.
This is the Kendall Waston goal.
Yeah, he basically, for a cross coming from the goalkeeper's left-hand side, he is outside of the goal. Like, he's between the post and the 6-yard box. I don't know why that would ever be your positioning unless you think a near-post shot is coming. So it did make me wonder if David Bingham is in. Maybe do a few of those goals not happen? And honestly, does he patrol the box a little bit more because he has more experience?
I don't know the answers to this. It's hard to do counterfactuals with goalkeepers, right?
And actually, it was the case worth noting here for Vancouver as well that Ousted is the regular start. I think started 28 or so games for them this season, but it was Marinarovic in goal for this one. So two replacement goalkeepers.
He kept it clean.
One had a better night than the other.
And Mesquida, who's not a Mesquida, is a player I'm not familiar with.
Or Keto is what I think they kept screaming when he scored.
But he came off the bench. Yep. He only had, 22 minutes in this game? Just got the 2 goals.
Not bad.
Just a quick cameo of 2 goals. See what I can do. Adequate, very adequate.
Yeah.
Also, Breck Shea.
I knew that was coming.
Came off the bench. Didn't play that many minutes either, right? Maybe half an hour or so. Got 2 assists. One actual assist and one literal MLS assist, as in it's listed as Mesquida, Bolaños, Breck Shea.
Yeah. And it was... The assist he actually gets, like the direct assist, is a really great ball. He picks a spot. He recognizes that one player has dropped way too far. Youngworth, I think it was. I could be wrong on that one. But it's basically recognizes that there's an opportunity, plays that perfect ball in. That said, it did feel a little bit like at that point it was kind of stop, they're already dead. That it was like Breck Shea comes in, fully rested, ready to go against a sort of emotionally and physically fatigued back line, and he ran at them hard.
I think that is sort of the finish him move from Carl Robinson, is bringing Breck Shea into this game because, we've criticised Breck Shea in the past for being basically he just runs in straight lines, like aggressively, physically, but then he's capable of floating in really good crosses. He just doesn't have a lot of sort of variational moves in between. But if you want someone to just quickly and strongly run down the line and float crosses in to a team that's like really spread because they're desperate and it's the final few minutes of the game, Breck Shea's the perfect weapon to bring in.
Yeah.
That's why he has 2 assists.
I'm just going to say this. Carl Robinson, that was a really good move. Obviously gets the result here.
Former Wolves player, by the way.
And where's he from?
Where's he from? Wales.
Yep. So I'm just saying maybe Wales, you look at him as a possible national team manager. Maybe Chris Coleman's available. Maybe he comes to the United States. That's all I'm saying.
Did Chris Coleman resign? Is that official?
I don't know.
That was the rumour, but I'm not sure it's happened
yet.
Would
like him to come to the United States, even though I feel like the Premier League is maybe in his future.
Yeah.
But for right now, I think he might still be there. I'm not sure.
Okay. We'll double check.
Bring me Chris Coleman.
But let's let Carl Robinson stay at the playoffs at least.
Okay. If we have to.
All right, so there are obviously 2 more playoff games tonight.
Yep.
I mean, as we record, it's Atlanta v Columbus. Don't you dare check the score. I don't want to know.
Checking the score right now, but I'm not going to tell you.
Don't tell me. So I'll have
17-16.
Did someone miss a field goal?
Yes. Extra point. But yeah.
So I'll have a guest on tomorrow's show. I will be reviewing the MLS playoff games with my guest, as well as talking about other US men's national team themed things.
Beautiful.
So there you go. Also on today's show, we have several listener questions. But first,
yes, sir.
Let's do the ad read.
Do you want to do that?
Yes.
Let's do it. Okay. We have a new sponsor today, Daryl Grove.
We do. Today's show is sponsored by USMNT Center.
Yes.
USMNTcenter.com is a website. It's also an app, the USMNT Center app, that keeps track of all the US men's national team senior players, but don't stop listening because it also tracks the future with US youth national team players.
All right, for a moment, you got me really excited because it tracks the future? Like it can tell me?
I'm saying it's not just the current US teams. It's the players. It's the players of the future.
When Tyler Adams scores in 2021 for Barcelona, we're going to find out about it right now in the the app.
Yes, exactly. So
it does not do that.
If you open this app or go to the website, USMNT Center, Center spelled CENTER.com, the link to the website and the app will be in the show notes, right, Taylor? You'll see a database of US players, present and future, and you'll be able to sort of click on each player and you'll get sort of a highlight video about them. You get all their stats, their age, who they play for, all kinds of good, solid information.
Yep.
There's also a feed of US national team news, and did you see this? There's a list of podcasts.
No, I didn't see that.
There's a list of sort of US-themed podcasts, and we made the list.
Hooray.
Yes.
I was going to say, did we make the list? Because if not, end of read.
So the best thing about this is... Sorry, I've been talking.
I would say... Well, I don't know what you're going to say, but I would say the best thing about this is that... I mean, you and I do a podcast about... like that focuses a lot on American soccer and especially young Americans. We do the Top Drawer Soccer Show where we focus a lot on the up and comers in youth soccer. There were players listed in that like top prospects that I had never heard of.
Yes,
and it was great to learn more about them and see where they're playing.
There are players who I am definitely going to add to the Total Soccer Show Scouting Network. Who did you see? There's a player you saw. He was American and Indian.
I have deleted it, so I can't remember. Not deleted, but like I had that tab open because then I went and read a bunch about him. But yeah, he's
playing?
Born in the United States. I guess he can play for India. He has an Indian passport, but he plays for, I think, Ajax it is, from the Real Madrid Academy. Yes.
Right.
So Ajax
he was in the Real Madrid Academy. Right, so that's someone we learned about. I learned about a guy who has the best name ever, Shaft Brewer.
Yeah, that's insane. I absolutely thought that was a fake name.
Shaft Brewer. No, he's very real. He's American. He is with the RB Leipzig U19 team.
That'll work.
Which, if you know about German U19 teams, that's where the real talent is, right? Not with the second the reserve team. The U19 team is where they put the young talent. So obviously there's also a lot of players you can track like Adams, Pulisic, Shaq Moore, a bunch of guys that you might know, but
Joshua
also
Pinadath. That's the one that I was talking about.
Go.
Pinadath.
So if you want to keep an eye on the future and the present, there's a lot of schedules and highlights of senior teams and youth teams. Go to USMNTcenter.com or download the app, USMNT Center app. And how much? This is the key part. How much does it cost, Taylor?
I believe $1 million.
$1 million?
No, it's free.
It's free. So it costs an average of $500,000.
Yes.
So if you want to support the Total Soccer Show, support our sponsors, you can do this without spending a penny today or a cent. I guess we're in America. You go to USMNTcenter.com.
Those are the same thing.
Or you can... Are they?
Yeah. A penny and a cent?
Yeah. All right. Or you can download the USMNT Center app. And as I understand it, the creator of this app listens to the show, and that's how he contacted us to advertise.
Yes.
So thank you to USMNT Center, and please, everybody, go take a look. Keep an eye on the future.
Please do, because it really is genuinely, especially if you're a little bit bummed out. I'm not going to lie, looking at this app made me feel a little bit better about the U.S. national team, because it was sort of like, oh, he plays for Ajax, and he plays for Ajax, and he plays for Barcelona. Okay. Things are right.
Because one thing is, right, these are kids, obviously, right? So some of these kids...
They're all going to make it.
Some of these kids don't have Wikipedia pages. Yeah. So, for example, that's the obvious place you go to get info. You won't find it if you go to Wikipedia. But if you go to USMNTcenter.com or to the app, there's all the info is there when you click on them.
Right. Now, for the important question, let's get back to this penny versus 1 cent thing, because I feel like it's troubling to me that you didn't know that.
Okay.
How many cents is a nickel, Daryl?
5.
There we go. That was supposed to be ironical, but you answered it sincerely.
How much does it cost to cross the Nickel Bridge in Richmond, Virginia?
35 cents.
Yep.
The 7 Nickel Bridge.
The 7 Nickel Bridge.
Yep.
Shout out to any South Side listeners.
I also love penny candy that costs $0.25.
But reminder, USMNT Center app is free.
Yes.
Okay, so we have 4 listener questions for today's show. Some of them about sort of amateur soccer, some about the US men's national team. We're going to start with Scott Glack's question. Scott Glack says, or asks, I love this one. What is one soccer skill that you wished you had learned earlier in your youth soccer development? And interpret skill as broadly as you like. So a skill that sort of you wish you had learned younger.
And I will say the American term, and then I'll use the one that you're probably more comfortable with. I would say juggling or keepy-ups.
Really?
Yes, I think that was the one.
You mean keepy-uppies?
Keepy-uppies, excuse me. But that was the thing where we had to do it for my youth team. It was like a fundraiser. Like, you know, it was like I'm going to run, for every lap I run. For us, it was like, how much are you going to pledge per juggle?
It's like a juggler-thon.
And it became kind of a pressure thing because it was like, you better juggle this many because you got to make some money. And so it never...
That sounds like a nightmare I would have.
It was not fun. And you were like supposed to have certain limits that you reached at certain age groups. And I was sort of always of the mindset of like, if you can juggle like 25 or 50 times, 25 times, like that's plenty. That shows that you have control of the ball and that's enough. But really what I've learned in the past few years is that it's not just like keeping control of the ball and keeping it in the air. It kind of promotes improv.
I was going to say, why that? Because juggling in a game is not useful.
No,
right?
but because I would say what it does is it just kind of creates a little bit more familiarity, and it's a little bit
with
more...
the ball, between you and the ball?
Yeah, kind of. That like you
This is like skin to skin with a baby.
Yeah, exactly. That's the exact same thing. I'm sure parents will love that analogy. No, but it's like it just gives you a little bit more time to like if you're just passing, like if it's you and me passing back and forth, I'm just going to pass back and forth with you because I don't want to like sit there and fool around as you're like, can I have the ball back? But when you're juggling, it's sort of like, oh, hey, I'll try that, or I'll try this. And it just makes you a little bit more like, oh, I can juggle with the outside of my foot. Well, maybe I can shoot with the outside of my non-dominant foot. And it kind of gets you more familiar with parts of your body that you maybe otherwise wouldn't use in a game. And the more familiar you get, maybe the more like confidence you have to try a move, try a little bit of skill that you wouldn't otherwise use. And I think it just gives you that much more like freestyling ability that then translates into fluidity on the pitch.
That's interesting. Well, the reason this surprises me genuinely, you know, we obviously play a lot of soccer together, probably 3 times a week at least.
At least.
Right? You don't seem like someone who's short of ideas and tricks when you're running at people. So why would this make you a better player now?
If you actually think about that for a second, I use 3 moves. That's it.
Oh, careful! CVSA people listen to this show. If you're a CVSA player who's going to play against Taylor in the near future, please fast forward 30 seconds.
Let me just say this to all soccer players out there in the world: the most devastating, effective move you can use, just the cut. Just the chop. That's it.
The chop.
Dribble one direction as fast as you can, cut it back. That defender will continue to go. If you sell it enough, you're going to be fine. But, honestly, I wasn't always. Like, that is a thing that, like, as I started to juggle more, really in the past, like, 5 to 8 years, it's more like, oh, I can try that. Oh, really shooting with my left foot. I'm not left-footed. But the more, like, I juggle with my left foot, the more confidence I get with it, the more likely I am to shoot with it.
All right. Mm-hmm. Okay, my answer?
Yeah.
I wish I had learned to dribble at people when I was younger.
Yeah.
So I actually started playing soccer quite late, like 11 or 12. Played in goal for a couple of years. Didn't really play outfield till like 14 or so. And I feel like, you know, you've played with me. I've got a good defensive awareness, positioning. Like, I'm okay on the ball. I can pass the ball. I can control the ball. You don't see me run at people very often, right? It's just not part of my game. And I'm mostly fine with that. But I still, and I'm 37 now, so it's quite late to be learning things. But if I'm in a tight spot, like if I'm in trapped against the line, I've got like 2 or 3 people on me, I don't have the moves to get out of it. I don't necessarily have like a couple of moves to try and... The most I can do is maybe use some strength and pace, of what I've got left of pace, and try and get out of it. So I really wish when I was younger, I had learned sort of how to run at someone with the confidence of... I'm going to put a move on you and beat you.
Yeah, and that is, I'll say this, I can't speak to like your youth background when it comes to soccer, but I'll say that is a thing.
You don't know about the Netherton Colts?
No, I do not. I absolutely do not. But it is a thing where, like, if you try to dribble at somebody and you get stuck once or twice in a game, your coach will let you hear about it. And I do think that there is, at an early age, it kind of gets drilled out of you that, like, you're not being part of a team, you're being selfish, and you're being an individual. But then that kind of, like, stifles that creativity. So then when you're 17 or 18... maybe you're not going to go at somebody, or maybe at least you have to think about it. You have to think, okay, I'm going to try a step over, whereas there's no way Cristiano Ronaldo is thinking, I will do a step over and then I will do another step over. It just happens and then he does it. So I'm with you on that one, that like there is that element of like I wish at an earlier age I'd had that confidence and that kind of ability.
There we go. All right, so enough about us. Let's move to the US men's national team. Tom Holt. You get that?
I do.
Yeah.
Steve Holt's cousin?
Yeah. Wants to know. Jermaine Jones was a key player for the US in Brazil, 2014. Accurate. Sure. Who is the Jermaine Jones of the future for the US? The guy who has passion and energy, despite being maybe sometimes reckless at times, the heart of the team. Who is the future Jermaine Jones, Taylor?
First of all, I'm still laughing at Steve Holt. So, I mean, there are a couple different options out there. I'm pretty sure I can guess who you're going to say.
Oh, really?
So I would say my, second choice candidate is Paul Arriola, because I think we've seen him have that feistiness and that intensity and that willingness to run everywhere.
He's a feisty gentleman, yes.
But I'm going to say the most logical candidate is, in my mind, is a person who theoretically plays with Jermaine Jones at club level. We haven't heard from him in a while.
Leggett?
Sebastian Leggett.
Yes!
Yeah, because you think about before he got injured, he was feisty, and he was intense, and he was aggressive, and he was patrolling the midfield, and he was doing all those things that we love to see from Jermaine Jones without doing a lot of the stuff that we don't love to see from Jermaine Jones.
My answer is Tyler Adams.
So I'm ready for him to come back. And yes, that was who I assumed you were going to say.
My answer is Tyler Adams because I don't know if he's reckless, but he does charge around a lot, right? You see how much ground he covers for New York, and it seems like he almost has a surplus. It might just be being a teenager, but it's like he has a surplus of energy, and he's always charging to go and close people down. He's always yelling at people. He's 18, and he's really telling off his senior New York Red Bulls teammates. I really think he will be a leader and a source of energy, and occasionally a source of frustration, because I feel like he'll probably overrun something at some point on a national team level, and we'll be like, oh, Tyler Adams, make better decisions. But I think I'll still love him for it. So I think Tyler Adams is the future Jermaine Jones.
Yeah, he is a player that, like, in the times that we've watched him, I can't think of a time when I've been like, oh, he could have run a little bit more. Like, it seems like he always...
No, I'll say less. He could run a little bit less.
Yeah, and that does feel a little bit like peak Jermaine Jones. Of just like, he's still going? How is this possible? That man is a machine. Tyler Adams, also a machine.
So there you go. The future Jermaine Jones. Okay, next question. Oh, goes back to amateur soccer. I like it.
Right.
It's from Blair Hollingsworth, our old friend Blair Hollingsworth in
Blair.
Florida. Hey, Blair. Okay, Blair wants to know, what would be the bare minimum of skills for a newbie player to join a team if, let's say, a grown-ass man or woman who is well past their prime has been asked to join a Sunday league and they love the game but have never played at all? What should they work on before showing up to their first practice? Before you answer, Taylor, I think someone's asked Blair to join a team.
Oh, you think?
Blair, it sounds like Blair's describing himself.
Yeah,
right?
a little bit, yeah.
I guess why else would you ask this?
Yeah.
All right. So, Blair, I'd love to know what the name of the team is. But Taylor, what's your answer? So if Blair has watched soccer his whole life, or a lot of his life, I assume, but hasn't played much and isn't in amazing shape where he can rely on pace or strength, what should he work on before showing up to his first? It sounds like not the first actual 11-a-side game, but the first practice, so that people will not look at him and be like, "Oh, we can't use you."
I would say, it's tough because fitness factors into it. There's not much you can do in the span of 2 weeks to get really fit. But I would say
the answer is Kendall Watson dance, right?
Yeah, obviously.
Celebrate like Kendall.
I'd say if you're talking about first of all, if you're talking about pickup versus playing for a team, that's
it sounds like he's joining a team, but he's going to practice.
Then I think, let's say if you're going to practice, I think the biggest thing for me is the amount of effort you're willing to put in. That if you're just the dude who's standing around and loses the ball and then doesn't work back, that's going to be frustrating really fast. If you're the guy who just wants to stand up top and try to score the goals, but then doesn't help out in transition
and doesn't score the
goals,
goals,
that's going to be frustrating. So I would say the best thing you can do is maybe focus on your defensive work and focus on kind of shielding people and forcing people one way and kind of being more of a defensive presence.
Yeah.
And I would say
that's hard though, because I feel like that takes a lot of experience to know the positioning of how to do that.
Yeah, but I think if you're just doing small-sided, you kind of have that idea of stay in the middle, don't let them come right at you, force them out wide. That's kind of enough to start. And then I think it's the amount of willingness to expend energy and to show that effort. I think that factors into it too.
So that's interesting. You're talking a lot of mental stuff as opposed to technique. Is that because it's too short of a time span to learn technique?
Yeah.
So the best you can do is do the mental stuff?
I think it is. And then I think with that, if you want to think about things to practice, I would say passing. And I think in that situation,
was going to be my answer.
I think it's just play simple. Win the ball, play to somebody else, keep moving.
I would say the thing to practice is controlling a ball with your instep. How many new players have we seen who, when a ball comes to them, they don't quite know what to do with it, they want to try and stamp on it, or there's a weird tendency I've seen a lot of people to try and control it with the outside of your foot. I'm not sure why. Maybe it feels more like you're protecting yourself in some way, but it's definitely the wrong move, because if it hits the outside of your foot, it's going to bounce away from you, right? So there's definitely the technique of just receiving the ball with your foot slightly off the floor with your instep. If you can do that, everyone will be like, oh, this guy at least knows how to do that. That's the basic thing that soccer players know how to do.
I would say there's this is a roundabout way of explaining this, but when I was learning to teach English as a second language, one of the things that you don't forget is how often we use either idiomatic expressions or just expressions that don't translate. So if I say I'm going to pick your brain, if you have no idea what that means, you're very confused.
Yeah, I'll be like, I've seen Indiana Jones. This is terrifying.
And I do think there are certain things that you and I, because we've played soccer our whole lives, and anybody who has, just sort of kind of know how to do or assume that you do. And really, I've never thought about this before, but I think a big part of the reason why people receive it with the outside of their foot is because right now you and I are facing each other, listeners, Dale and I are facing right each other. If he passes the ball to me, well, then it makes sense to use my instep. But if I'm running down the field and you're passing, if you're the central midfielder, I'm on the left and you're passing it to me, there is that thing of like, it's coming to my right side, I'll receive it with the outside of my right foot because that's the most logical place versus I'll turn and open up and receive it like coming into me.
That's
and I think there's that element of like,
of
I have to change my whole body and then I can receive the ball.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of it.
But you do have to change your whole body
Absolutely,
to receive the ball. Open your hips up to receive the ball.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I think that's it. I think working on like passing and playing simple because I'm a big proponent of the idea that if you're playing with a new team or maybe you're like raising your game, you're playing at a different level, the best thing you can do is play simple because once you kind of after like the first couple minutes, if you win a ball back and you play it simple and you get the ball back and you make a good pass and then you maybe try one move and it works, like you can kind of build that confidence and find that flow. But if you're trying to do that right away, you're going to run into problems.
I don't want to go into a whole like coaching session, but the other big thing that I've seen new players not do that they definitely should do is come and meet the ball.
Yep.
So if this, like say this, I'm assuming this actually is Blair going to a practice session. If someone passes you the ball, don't stand there waiting to receive it. Because while you're standing there waiting to receive it, an opponent, either in just, an opponent in practice or an opponent in a game, if you get into a game, is going to intercept that ball. Because if you're standing, they're moving, they're going to get to the ball first.
Yep.
So when someone passes you a ball, move towards it pretty much as quickly as you can to make sure you get there first. Don't run away from the ball, run towards the ball.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my final one, which is another
how could someone practice that on their own?
What do you mean?
How can you practice getting to the ball first on your own?
Kick it off a wall.
Kick it off a wall and go and meet it.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And I think that works for defending too, that if you're the defender who's really willing to like charge and try to get to the end of that ball, because it works both ways, that if you're the attacker who stands there and waits for the ball, then you're kind of killing the momentum of your team. But if you're the defender who charges through and makes that play and intercepts the ball, your team is going to be like, all right, that guy's going to put that work in.
Yes.
My final thing, which is going to be kind of difficult, but I do think is important, so bear with me, Daryl, is that like
always
there is a fine line between being humble and being too self-deprecating. And I've played in games where there was like the guy who hadn't played in a while and he comes back in and everything is a joke about like, oh, I used to do that before I got fat. Oh, I can't do that anymore. Oh, I can't do that. And at a certain point, it's like, I get it. Like, that's enough. And and like you think you're being funny and sort of like charming, but really what you're doing is making everybody be like, yeah, no, it's okay, man. Yeah, it's okay, man. And then it like just starts to be a thing like, okay, yeah, you're bad. And like you don't want that. You want to be like, oh, shoot, sorry, I could have done better. And then you play your game. And if you make a mistake, you acknowledge it, but you move on. Don't kind of keep driving into the ground.
Well, the other thing is, if you're saying like, I used to be fitter, I used to be faster, whatever, you're really just focusing on yourself.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
That's not being a great teammate. It's to just focus on your own physique.
No, it is not.
Whether your physique is great or not so great.
So get it together, Blair.
But Blair, please email us or text us. Let us know how that's going.
Yeah.
Okay.
Final question. I think you've asked all three, so maybe I'll ask this one. Adam Ulrich says,
I see what you've done here.
Is the U.S. elimination from the World Cup a blessing in disguise? Could this allow the U.S. to turn younger players to build cohesion in preparation for 2022? Turn two younger players, excuse me.
So this is going to be unpopular, but I'm going to say no and no.
Correct.
Okay, here's what I think. The U.S. elimination from the World Cup is not a blessing in disguise because I still think even if it is an opportunity to make some change in US soccer, which I think it is, right, and that's the positive we can try and draw out of not qualifying for the World Cup, US soccer, American soccer as a whole, not the Federation, American soccer would still be better off if we had qualified for the World Cup because the benefits of going to the World Cup are financial, there's sort of exposure in the country, it moves the game forward, all of that stuff. So it's not a blessing in disguise.
No.
But we can treat it as an opportunity. This is a things can be two things thing.
Yes,
right?
with a caveat, I would say. But yeah, do you want to keep going? Or?
What's your caveat?
Well, I would just say that like this is what I keep going back to is that like no, it's not a silver lining right now. No, it's not a potential blessing.
Bronze lining?
I guess silver lining is like that's like where there is a good thing and a bunch of bad things. Whereas blessing in disguise is like could it be a good thing?
Yeah, no, these are two different things, right?
And I would say like until there is evidence that it's a blessing in disguise, it's not. And until like if this does. Sunil Gulati says, you know what, I'm not standing, like, I'm not going to run for re-election. We need new blood. And they change everything. And this changes and this gets better. Then, yeah, maybe. And that's the thing is, like, maybe 20 years from now, if U.S. soccer is winning, or 21 years from now, or whatever, U.S. soccer is winning a World Cup.
So you could look back and say a blessing in disguise.
You could, but I'm like, I will never believe
right now
that.
It's a very good disguise.
Yeah, because I would say...
It would win Halloween.
Yes. I would say that if the United States had qualified for the World Cup and finished dead last in their group, then at least they still go to the World Cup, and then we're like, okay, they finished dead last, things need to change. So I don't think that missing entirely changes that much, but I do think if in the long run, maybe it forces change, which I don't think it is right now, but if it eventually does, then maybe it's a good thing. Yeah. But right now, I say no.
How about if this is the thing that forces pro-rel?
Yes.
And pro-rel becomes a booming success, then yeah, maybe maybe it's a blessing in disguise.
There's a couple ifs in there,
There's
but yeah.
huge, gigantic ifs.
Yes.
With hundreds of millions of dollars.
I think if we're going with the scientific hypothesis, we went if, then. There we go.
Love that. So the second part of Adam's question is this: could this allow the US to turn to the younger players to build cohesion in preparation for 2022? Do you mind if I answered this?
No.
Because I feel like I've had this conversation a lot lately. 2022 is a long time away. Correct. You can't start preparing for the November 2022 World Cup. It's even farther away than a regular World Cup. Further away, excuse me. It's also farther away. It's over in Qatar. You can't really put a team together now and say, hey, you guys are the team for 2022, even a young team, because come 2021, March 2021, there's going to be some new player who are like, wow, this kid's amazing. Maybe we should get him in the team, right?
Yes.
If you started building for the 2018 World Cup right after 2014, you would not have included Christian Pulisic.
No.
Put it that way, right? So the idea of building for 2022 now is with just young players that you expect to play in the next World Cup doesn't make sense. But we can turn to youngsters, and that could be exciting.
Well, that's the thing. And I'll say I pretty much agree with you, but to play devil's advocate for a second, I would add that if the United States had qualified, I do think they play another friendly in November. So I think they've got Portugal and then somebody else in Europe. And then I think that you probably bring the players that if your Bruce Arena probably stays on if they qualify, then he's going to bring the players, mostly probably European-based, but some MLS players. He's going to bring the players that he wants to see play against stiff European opposition. Then in that January camp, I think he said this when he was first appointed, that January 2018 camp.
Are you saying we would have seen young players anyway?
No, I actually quite the opposite. I'm saying that if that January 2018 camp, you're looking at players who might go to the World Cup. So you're not going to call in a bunch of youngsters. You're not going to give an 18-year-old right back in MLS a chance because you want to know, well, who could be the third choice right back, Graham Zusi or this guy? And so I do think maybe there's a chance that if the United States looks at the time between January 2018 to the start of the World Cup as an opportunity to all right, well, let's see what some of these guys can do. I don't think they would have been able to do that if they had qualified because they'd be more about building a roster for 2018.
It depends who you mean, because I honestly think someone like Tyler Adams and someone like Weston McKennie would have been given a shot for 2018.
That's true.
Right? So, but now it's different because we're looking at them for 2022. It just has this weird long view that is too long, in my opinion.
That's fair. Yeah. I mean, and again, and I always go back to, if we didn't qualify for 2018, let's not assume that we're going to qualify for 2022.
There's also that, right? We should be putting a team together to get through the CONCACAF qualifying process in 2021.
Let's go play on terrible fields and get used to it.
Okay, so thank you to Scott, Tom, Blair, and Adam for the excellent questions.
Yes.
We have many more questions because we kind of have a backup of questions because we got distracted by the recent unpleasantness. So we're going to be answering more questions on the Total Soccer Show in the near future.
And as always, we're going to be reading out some scouting reports.
We are
getting many of them. We have an ever-evolving, ever-expanding scouting network. We get some great reports. People are doing a great job of checking Twitter, checking Reddit, finding highlights, finding little things here and there that maybe people might have missed. And also using it, I think the thing that I'm enjoying to an extent, because I don't want novels coming in, but I like that a couple different of these reports expand to he plays with this guy or he's becoming friends with this guy and giving more information about the team or the individual players that I think helps inform more so than just talking about one player.
The rich tapestry of the Total Soccer Show Scouting
Network.
Network.
Beautiful. So with that in mind, I'll start with Beth Jolly and Alex Barone. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Scouting Kylian Mbappe, 18-year-old French forward for PSG.
I have heard of him.
On Monday, Kylian won the Golden Boy Award, which remains one of the weirdest named awards I can think of.
Is it Peanuts?
What? The Golden Boy?
Golden Boy Peanuts?
Sure.
No?
Is that a thing?
Yeah.
I thought you meant Peanuts, the Charles Schultz comic. Was it Charlie Brown?
No.
Is he a Golden Boy?
The Mountain Goats have a song about Golden Boy Peanuts.
There we go. I do know the Mountain Goats. The Golden Boy Award, which is given to the best U21 players in Europe. Player in Europe. He got 291 votes, 142 votes ahead of second-place finisher Ousmane Dembele. Ooh. I think Christian Pulisic was 6th in the voting.
All right.
However, the day before, he had his worst game for PSG, who drew 2-2 with Marseille. L'Equipe gave him a 2 out of 10 match rating, and he admitted that PSG didn't take the match as seriously as they should have. More worryingly, a recent Guardian article on PSG noted, quote, Neymar's individualistic nature is spreading perhaps most worryingly to Mbappe. The 18-year-old also started the season in scintillating style, but this consistency has evaporated in recent weeks. He is missing clear chances, trying to take on too many defenders, and making poor decisions, end quote.
Here's what's interesting to me. Okay, so PSG are in Ligue 1. Game against Marseille.
Yeah.
That's if I was circling games on the schedule that maybe they wouldn't take as seriously, that's not the game I would choose.
No, you would think Ayashio, or however you say that team, like one that's like just been promoted or is near the bottom of the table, like maybe that's one where you're like, all right, we can switch off. They're going to be intimidated. Yeah. I would also say that if you're PSG, you always have a target on your back. So I don't think you can really afford to switch off for any team. But maybe Neymar and Kylian Mbappe disagree.
Okay, Steve Renard is scouting Yuri Tielemans, the 20-year-old Belgian midfielder for Monaco. Steve says, Tielemans saw only limited minutes in September, but that's changed in October. He's played in 11 games across all competitions and started this past weekend as they got back to winning ways with a 2-0 victory over, I'm going to say, Ken.
Sure.
C-A-E-N.
Ken. Well, sure, whatever.
It's not Cannes.
It's not.
Because Cannes spelled differently.
I believe it's a port city, he says, trying to channel his medieval Total War playing. Or, excuse me, Empire Total War. My mistake. John Adams, not that one. Scouting Shayon Harrison, 20-year-old English striker for Tottenham. Shayon got his first minutes of the new season, starting and scoring in Spurs Premier League 2 win over Arsenal in the young North London derby, which is a thing that John Adams made up. Tottenham came away with a 3-2 victory, with Marcus Edwards also getting on the score sheet.
Well done, Marcus Edwards. Okay.
That was not included. I included that just because I knew it would make you happy.
You were correct. Jeff Markman is scouting Reece Nelson, the 17-year-old English midfielder for Arsenal. All right, we're staying in North London. Jeff says Nelson again started at right wing back. Oh, Jeff wasn't thought about that last time, right? In Arsenal's...
That will be a theme of this report.
Carabao Cup match against Norwich City. I'm still going to call it the Coca-Cola Cup. He was a bright spot amidst a dour affair, and his improvements as a defender were obvious. His performance will likely best be remembered for what happened after he left the pitch in the 85th minute. Please don't be a fight. Please don't be a fight. Nelson was replaced by Eddie Nketiah, who scored Arsenal's equaliser. I just whistled through my teeth. With his first touch immediately upon introduction, and then put the Gunners ahead in extra time from another corner. Sounds like we have a new addition to the Scout Network.
Seems like.
The good news is that the goals put Arsenal through to the next round, where Nelson will again likely have the opportunity to wear himself out at right wing back instead of maximising his attacking gifts. Parentheses, I'm not bitter, close parentheses.
Sean Dickey scouting Weston McKennie, the 19-year-old American central midfielder for Schalke. Weston McKennie returned from injury on Tuesday as a substitute against, I was challenged with this one, SV Wehen Wiesbaden.
Sounds good.
Thank you. In the DFB Pokal. He came on with Schalke already up 3-0, and there weren't any Weston-specific highlights, but Sean notes that it's good to see him healthy and back in the squad.
I agree.
I had a feeling you would.
Ryan Marzak is scouting Josh Onomah, the English Modric, the 20-year-old English midfielder on loan at Aston Villa from Tottenham. You laugh because you didn't watch the U20 World Cup final. I'm deadly serious.
I know you are. I just laugh because in addition to the future, there's a couple of those different titles being thrown around by you, I think.
Ryan says Onomah started and played the full 90 for Aston Villa over the weekend against Fulham. Villa won 2-1, and Ryan says he's starting to understand why Steve Bruce said he would, quote, break the bank, unquote, to bring Onomah to Villa Park on a permanent basis.
Unfortunately, he was talking about his own personal
piggy
bank, which is,
The youngster was consistently involved in Villa's attacking moves and should have had an assist if it weren't for a mistake from Jonathan Kodja, who whiffed on Onomah's cross, but made enough contact that when Albert Odoma eventually scored, Kodja got the assist.
Yes, I think Ryan wanted the MLS assist credited. I will give that credit. Total Soccer Show says Onomah gets the assist.
The EFL assist.
Yes, with the Total Soccer Show official statistics board. It's the assist. John Zamponia scouting Jalen Lindsay, 17-year-old American right back for Sporting KC.
Yeah.
Jalen was out with a concussion, did not know that, for the USA's quarterfinal 4-1 loss to England in the U17 World Cup.
I did know that. He was one of the options to start at centre-back.
Yeah, that I knew.
And so he couldn't because of the concussion.
I didn't even know he got a concussion.
But that's why we ended up with... I didn't know how it happened, but I knew that he had it because I remember the commentator saying it. That's why Durkin and Sands played centre-back in that game.
I wonder if it was one of those ones, because he did come down really hard off of a couple aerial challenges. I wonder if it was maybe... I don't remember him subbing off against Paraguay, so I wonder if maybe it was after the game they realized, ooh, that's not good.
Could be.
Anyway, the U.S. could have used his help as England striker Rhian Brewster managed a hat-trick against the United States.
Sure did.
The only positive is that Brewster had an even more impressive hat-trick against Brazil in the semifinals, which was also a 4-1 win for the Three Lions. So that means they're through to
the final. England are in the World Cup final, U17 World Cup final against Spain. It's this Saturday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern. It's a rematch of the Euro 2017 Under-17 World Cup final, which Spain won on penalties. So England really could face their fears and conquer all their penalty fears in the U17 World Cup final.
And I feel like in the last U20 World Cup, didn't the United States lose to Serbia?
Venezuela.
Okay, shoot.
Serbia was 2015.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I was thinking, I just like the United States establishing a track record of either going really far in the tournament or being eliminated by the eventual champion.
Yeah.
So let's hope England pull it off for many different reasons.
Even at the U20 World Cup, they were beaten by Venezuela. Venezuela played England in the final. So the US are at least losing to the champion or the runner-up, which has happened this time as well.
And credit to Peter Crouch for his hilarious tweet of like, youngsters today don't even recognize the English tradition of being eliminated in the quarterfinals. Well done, Peter Crouch. For his part, Jalen Lindsay will now turn his attention to the U18, U19, and U20 U.S. teams and officially joining Sporting KC for training and preseason this winter. Here's to hoping for 100-plus MLS minutes for Jalen in 2018.
Ooh, I would set that bar higher. But I guess he is also only 17.
He young.
Yeah, he is young. There's more on the flip side of the page.
Two more.
Two-sided printing, very environmentally friendly. Ryan Marzak is scouting Pione Sisto, the 22-year-old Danish winger for Celta Vigo. Second report from Ryan today. Pione started in both league matches since the international break for Celta Vigo. He got 2 assists in the 5-2 drubbing of Las Palmas and looked consistently impressive in Celta's 1-0 loss to Atletico Madrid. In that loss, he nearly set up his teammates on multiple occasions, but each time they were unable to finish off the move. Go Pione.
Yes, sir. Final report comes from Steve Abadili, scouting Shaq Moore. Yep, I'm excited. Yeah. 20-year-old American right back for Levante. Shaq Moore made his first-team debut, playing 90 minutes at right back for Levante in a 2-0 win over Girona in the Spanish Copa del Rey. During the lineup announcement, they strictly referred to him as Shaq, which could lead to some confusion among the Levante faithful. Steve,
he looks real small from
I was going to say, Steve was wondering if maybe they were like, wait, what? That guy?
So this is, as I understand it, Shaq Moore's debut for Levante's first team. I think he's played with some of their reserve teams.
Was when I said made his first team debut?
Oh,
was that what gave it away?
Yes, that was what gave it away.
I feel like that continues the tradition of Joe Grove not quite reading the scouting reports.
I'd also seen, I think I'd seen it on Twitter, some of the people noting that this
Travis
is what
Clark,
happened. Yeah.
Notably amongst them.
Baby Nats, I think, had also made that. So I'm hoping now we see Shaq Moore.
You checked Twitter about 3 minutes before recording this show, didn't you?
No, sometime today.
Okay, because it was featured prominently for some reason, like right before we recorded. And I was like, okay,
I think I
confirmed.
retweeted it, so you may have got some replies to it. Anyway, we'll talk about Twitter
Interesting.
later. So here's hoping Shaq Moore gets some actual minutes in La Liga with Levante after this Copa del Rey debut.
I'm just saying, get some minutes in La Liga, starting right back for a La Liga team. Maybe DeAndre Edlin feels that pressure.
Maybe Tyler Adams can play midfield instead.
I'm all right with that.
Okay, so thank you to Beth and Alex and Steve and John and Jeff and Sean and Ryan twice and John and Steve.
I was wondering how you were going to do the Ryan twice.
Report.
Well done.
If you'd like to join the TSS Scouting Network, the URL is totalsoccershow.com/join. You get the fun of joining the network and getting the player to scout. You also will be supporting the Total Soccer Show in all our endeavours.
Indeed. So if you
keeping the lights on.
That is very useful.
We endeavour to keep the lights on.
Even though we do not pay our power bill because we're in a business building.
I'm pretty sure it's included in the rent, Tyler.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah.
I'm just saying, it's not like you help us occupy the space consistently and not be thrown out with all of our equipment in here, because that would be a bummer. But yeah, if you join the Total Soccer Show at any level, you are assigned a scout. If you go with the $10 option, that's where you get your question guaranteed to be answered at some point.
Guaranteed.
Yeah.
One question a month, guaranteed.
Yep.
So thank you to everybody who has recently joined. I know there were some people waiting for the scouts. I got a couple of itchy feet emails in the last few days. I promise I am working on it every day. Someone's getting Rhian Brewster.
I just want to say one more time.
Someone's getting Rhian Brewster.
First of all, that's fair. I want to say one more time, why did you have to go with itchy feet? Couldn't you just write like, I would like a scout, please, itchy feet?
It just gets your attention.
It does.
It does get your attention.
In a gross way.
Okay, final other thing. In the very near future, we will be having a real-life referee here in the studio. It's official TSS referee consultant, Scott Zawadzki.
Not a Second Life referee.
We have set up a page on our website, totalsoccershow.com/asktheref, or one word, where you can ask a question about refereeing that we will ask to Scott. We already have a lot of questions. We can't guarantee we'll ask all of them. We won't be mentioning this again because the question box is already kind of full. So if you've got a question for Scott Zawadzki, real-life referee, go to totalsoccer.com, ask the ref, leave your question there.
And if your question includes an insult about the New England Patriots, it's rockets to the top of the list. I just want to throw that in there.
It absolutely does.
Scott will not enjoy that, but I'm fine with it. Sorry, Scott.
Taylor Rockwell, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Right back at you, pal.
Listeners, thank you for listening. I'll be back again tomorrow. Taylor will not, because you'll be coaching the youth of the future.
Indeed.
But I'll be back again tomorrow to talk MLS and US men's national team with a guest.
And I do want to add, on my lesson on Tuesday afternoon, as the students were leaving the classroom, the teacher said to them, practice hard and pay attention, because you're the only way we're going to get to a World Cup.
Is that true?
They were 3.
All right, that's all from us. I'll talk to you tomorrow.